Great. Give everybody a second. Okay, did everybody sign in? First and foremost. Seeing nods, some nods, no shaking heads. Okay, great. Welcome. My name is Ellen Armour. I'm going to be your facilitator for this evening on this small but mighty group. My history in Fresno, I've lived here since 2015. I serve in a few different capacities, some of whom I know some of you in the room. So I serve as the board president for the Fresno Arts Council. My day job is the director of marketing and development for the Fresno Philharmonic. And I'm a lifelong musician, so arts are just sort of in my blood and I care a lot about it. As do all of you, that's why you're here. So I'm really excited to have this community discussion, particularly about the cultural arts plan. Before we begin though, I did want to say a special thank you to the City of Fresno. If you are the City of Fresno staff, will you please raise your hand so folks kind of know who you are? All right, awesome. And also to NCAP. They are the cultural arts plan consultant that was selected to help us through this process. NCAP stands for the Network for Cultural and Arts Policy. And if you are an NCAP member, will you please raise your hand? Hey, they come to us from all over, from New York, from Chicago, etc. The beautiful thing about that is that they have a wide breadth of experience performing and implementing cultural arts plans sort of all over the United States. The benefit to us here in Fresno is that they bring that breadth of knowledge to us and they can help us sort of apply best practices to our very special community. So, NCAP, COF, thank you so much. If you are a small group facilitator that has now joined the group, will you raise your hand? If you're a small group facilitator, hey-o. Okay, so if you are not a small group facilitator, those are the people you can look to help you through this process. We have a few different exercises that we're going to do interactively as a group, and they will be able to kind of like guide you in your individual tables as I guide you through the room. Sound good? Sweet, okay. I guess I should change the slides as I'm talking. Welcome, Fresnans. Okay, so you signed in. If we have any questions as we go along, one thing that we found has been very helpful to our participants is to know that there is a means by which you can ask questions outside of this as well. So if we go through this process and you're on the drive home, which tends to happen, you think of something as you're making dinner or you're talking to somebody, please jot down this website, which I have up here now and will also be at the very end of our discussion. And you can feel free to send any questions, thoughts, feedback. If you're talking to a friend and they ask you something and you're like, oh, I forgot to ask about that. This is the perfect way to make that known. So it's prac@fresno.gov. And did you get a snack? Everybody got a snack? Snacks need snacks, everyone, so go ahead and grab one if you need one. All right. So why are we here? How many of you, just by a show of hands, are familiar with Measure P? Oh, enthusiastic hands. Okay, super. Is everybody familiar with what the cultural arts plan is? By show of hands, yes or no? Kind of, sort of? Okay, that's helpful to know. So we are here actually to introduce the cultural arts planning process. This community meeting and the others like it, there are 5 in total, 4 for the public, 1 for youth, and then there are also 2 virtual meetings. These community meetings are a part of the cultural arts planning process. We can talk a little bit more about that in a few slides so I can tell you kind of the other portions of this process, but this is an integral part of it. And the purpose of this meeting in general is to make sure that we hear from all of you what matters to you about arts and culture in Fresno specifically. I think there are a lot of thoughts at municipal levels, but it's really important that we hear from people and residents in the community to know what's important to you and what to include. So a cultural arts plan in general, it is a guiding document that's used by cities and other agencies to help understand both the programming and, of course, the all-important question of how funds are spent. So we want to make sure that it is created in a way that helps to guide the public and is nourishing the arts community in Fresno, and that's why we're here. It should reflect, ideally, the cultural and demographic and geographic diversity of our city. It should not look like, another city. I think, like I said before, the benefit of NCAP is that they do have a wide breadth of experience, but the reason that we're here and having these discussions with Fresnans is that the plan is for Fresnans and needs to be developed by Fresnans. And nearly every metropolitan city in the US has a cultural arts plan of this nature that we are aiming to develop. And it really helps to guide the cultural scene programmatically as they move through their respective lives. And it should promote creative vitality and ideas, so that's why we want to hear all of your ideas. There should not be any limits on what you propose here tonight. And you'll see as we kind of go through the process, hello to our newcomers, you'll see as we go through the process kind of what that looks like. let's see. So the why behind a cultural arts plan, Measure P itself is an ordinance that was passed, and as a requisite and a requirement for the expenditure of those funds, we have to have a cultural arts plan in place. The reason that that matters is that it helps guide how that money is spent and make sure that the money is spent in the way that we as a community have decided, right? So we're giving all of our input here, and it's going to be implemented into the cultural arts plan, and that helps us determine how to spend the Measure P funds. Specifically, as it pertains to arts, as part of the cultural arts plan, 12% of the funds that are allocated from Measure P are for this fourth category, and it's intended on an annual basis to invest in competitive grants for nonprofit organizations, and that is specifically to expand arts access and programming. Oh, I do speak really quickly, that's true. Okay, thank you. I'm going to slow down just a bit. So 12% of the funds that are included in Measure P are specifically for arts and arts programs and arts organizations. And before we can spend any of that 12%, we have to have the cultural arts plan. So like I said, that's just like step one in the process. Funds for Measure P, we can focus on things that are currently active in the city, and we can also identify opportunities that don't currently exist. So the nice thing is you might be at the forefront of something very new and exciting just based on your ideas in this room today. And all of the ideas that have been taken from the first two meetings that happened on Monday and Tuesday, tonight's meeting, tomorrow night's meeting, the two virtual meetings, the one youth meeting, all of that comes together to help decide what goes into that plan and how exactly that money is going to be spent. Does that all make sense, more or less? All right, straightforward. And tonight in particular, we are asking for your feedback. So all the logistics aside, all the quantitative research aside, we want to hear from everybody in this room and all of the other rooms that we've been participating in to make sure that the community gets to give their proper input. So there are a number of different parts of a cultural arts plan. So as I mentioned, this community meeting and others like it are just one part of it. There has been extensive research that has gone on the part of NCAP in conjunction with the City of Fresno, in addition to other arts organizations locally here on the ground. We did have a public survey that was open to the public that recently closed on October 21st. That was open for the better part of a month, and it asked some pretty general questions about our, as residents, experience with arts organizations here in Fresno and around the surrounding areas. We did have some focus interviews, and those continue to take place with arts leaders, with organizational leaders and cultural practitioners. And then of course we're here with community meetings, in addition to some discussions with council districts and district members. So these 5 in-person meetings and the 2 virtual meetings are not the last part of this process. I know it's the last bullet on this slide, but it is one of the most, it's the current process that we're in for this overall cultural arts plan. How many of you took the survey? A few? Most people? Okay, very good. You did too? Excellent. Okay, so we have a few different ways in which you can help. The first that we're going to take part in this evening is the brainstorming activity. It should take approximately 30 minutes, and you're going to do it with the people at your table. And so it's going to be kind of fun to see what other people's ideas are and also be able to express your own. And then, part of that, we're going to be asking several different questions. The first of which is, what have you done? Where have you been, and what do you like to do that's related to arts and culture? That question is actually going to be in 2 parts. The first is pertaining to City of Fresno specifically. The second is pertaining to anywhere you've been, so outside of Fresno. That's kind of nice because it gives us a little bit of a benchmark. If you've been to or seen something or experienced something that's not here in Fresno that you really liked, that's something that matters to us. If you want to see that brought home, we can work on making sure that that is at least heard and included. The second question is going to ask you why those events that you listed in part 1 are important to you. Knowing that you love, Broadway is wonderful, but knowing why you love Broadway actually matters to us a little bit more even. The specific organizations are very helpful to be aware of, but we also want to know what the motivation is behind that. Is it that it's a family-oriented event? Is it that it brings you closer to a culture that you hadn't experienced before? Things of that nature. So you can place whatever you want on these sticky notes as we go along. The third question, of course, is the sort of critical question of how can the City of Fresno support these activities? This can look different depending on, of course, what your suggestions are in the first place. But we want to know if you have ideas about ways in which the city can specifically support something that you care about, put it on the sticky note. If it's a sense of place, if it's a sense of safety, if it's financial support, whatever it happens to be, make sure it lands on there. And it can be something completely different, whatever that means to you. The second part of tonight's interactive activity will be to take all of what we did in part one, which are going to be on different colored sticky notes, which I'll show you in a moment, and distill those ideas into themes. And themes are important because it does help our NCAP team in the City of Fresno understand categorically what is important to the community. So if we find that overall a sense of place is something that's meaningful to our community, that's something that we can more easily group and address. So the themes are going to be important, and we'll do that mostly as a larger group, but your small group facilitators at each table will help you figure out what your themes are from everything that you talked about in part one, and then we'll openly share them as a group in part two. With me so far? All right, great. So we're gonna identify the themes. We're gonna do a few different things. We're going to start with part one. So that is going to involve a lot of sticky notes, and we're really looking to make a rainbow here on our Post-it sheets, oversized Post-it sheets. So each of your community facilitators will have 4 different colored sticky notes. The first, each one corresponds to one of the questions that I just mentioned. So first and foremost, we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about where you've been, what you've done, and what you've enjoyed in the City of Fresno. We'll move on to the other ones, and I'll guide you through, so no need to rush. I'll give you a couple-minute warning at the end of each color. That way you have, time to collect your thoughts. Please hand your sticky notes to your small group facilitator so that they can put them up there for you, and you can just keep writing. And then I will let you know when we're going to move on. So starting first, activities in Fresno, things that you enjoy, that you visited, that you like to do. Take it away. All right? Hopefully everybody got a little snack, had a moment to chat. Okay. All right, welcome back. So really excellent work. As you guys can all see, you've done a wonderful job of providing tons of ideas, both inside of Fresno, outside of Fresno, why these things matter, and also how the City of Fresno can help support. So now you get a really great opportunity to get up and see everybody else's ideas. So I'm going to invite you in just a moment, not just yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to invite you to stand, read all of the other ideas from these other Post-it notes. If you need help understanding anything that's on there, if you need an interpreter, just raise your hand. If you have questions, you can kind of turn. This is not a huge group, so the benefit of that is that you can actually talk to each other about some of these ideas as well, right? To better understand what's on there. And the goal of this portion of the program is to identify themes that kind of tie all of your ideas together. And again, the purpose of these themes, just so you know kind of how they'll be used, is to help the City of Fresno and our NCAP consultants better distill exactly what it is that's important to this group for the cultural arts plan. So take a moment, make sure you, let's see, small group facilitators, raise your hands real quick. Who's gonna be writing down? You're writing down? Okay, gentleman with the red, Maria over here. Those are gonna be the folks that you want to convey your themes to so that they can write them down for the group. And then we'll reconvene in about 15 minutes and share them with each other with the whole room. Does that make sense? More or less? All right, I'm gonna set a timer. Get up, get cozy, say hello, read on, and I'll meet you back here in 15. All right, how are we feeling? How was that process for everyone? Pretty fun? Interesting? I'm feeding back.
Not anymore.
Does everybody feel like they got a chance to explore, talk to their fellow table mates? How many of you guys heard ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of yourselves? More or less? Some people know it all. Okay, super. We are having a small calamity, but everything's gonna be great. So thank you so much for all your thoughtfulness and your patience and attention with your fellow table mates. At this point, we're going to have our small group facilitators, of which there are 2 mighty and strong here, share some of the themes from each of those discussions so that everybody can kind of hear what they are, and then we can have just a tiny bit of discussion. So why don't we start to my left here? You guys definitely had more than 3 to 4, but we'll hear them all.
I can start out with 4 of them and then go to him and come back.
Love it.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So the first one is bringing communities together. That includes learning from one another and exposing one another to each other's cultures. The second one is youth engagement. The third one is, I'm fine. Okay. So second is youth engagement. The third one is strengthening families by giving them activities to do together. And the fourth is breaking stereotypes.
So we had started off with the idea of space and place, both spaces and places for arts to be made and shared with others, but then also incorporating the entirety of Fresno, because there is so much space and so many different places, and finding a way to connect those. And then we also talked a lot about specific access for artists to have to grants, to where it's not just, they don't have to wade through kind of bureaucracy or whatever to get funding, but it can go straight, it can be accessible to individual artists. And then kind of following that is the idea of just access in general, and that's related, of course, to space and place and the artistic access for artists, but access for the entire community to be able to experience the arts in Fresno. And then just the kind of overriding theme of there's so many different cultures and so much diversity in Fresno, and being able to kind of capture that and harness that and share it with others, and then also making sure that their equity is, I guess, resources and things are distributed across all cultures, and that it's not this type of art gets funded, but this one doesn't, and that. So that's our 4.
All right, last 4. So number 5 was cross-cultural communication. Number 6 was validating the work of artists, especially local, and ensuring their financial sustainability. Number 7 is creating a platform that inspires storytelling. And the final one is building a stronger community via economic development and self-image. That's it.
Hello. Okay, so this is much louder than my lapel mic, so I'm going to stick with this. Our interpreter is very happy now. He said you need to use that mic instead. Is it a happy dance? I'll take it. Love a good happy dance. Okay, so we have a lot of themes here. In just a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit about next steps and how this information is going to be used, what you can expect. There will be a future opportunity for you to participate again in this process. So I want to make sure you know about when that is and how you can follow up on that as well. But how many of you feel like these themes are surprising to you? No, right? Because you live here every day. This is something that you experience frequently. So I love these space and place, direct grants for artists, access, diversity and many cultures, equity with resources, a whole host of things over here, building stronger communities together, learning from each other, youth engagement, strengthening families. That was a very big theme that came up yesterday as well. Breaking stereotypes, cross-cultural communication was one that came up yesterday as well. So just as validation for all of your efforts tonight, I mean, just understand that a lot of these themes have come up in the last couple of meetings, and the new ones are very, very helpful as well to make sure that we capture all of your ideas. As far as next steps for this process, so this is a more general timeline. It carries us from here toward I can't believe we're at the end of October already, but here we are. So carrying us from October all the way through May of next year in 2023, at which time we expect to adopt the cultural arts plan that you are now helping to build. But we do have another period after the draft of the plan has been completed, estimated in March 2023. There is a public comment period that extends for about 20 days. That's anticipated to run in either March or April of 2023. And that will be another opportunity for all of you to sort of review what's been drafted by the City of Fresno, by our NCAP consultants, with all of your input and the input of other fellow Fresnans. And so I encourage you to make sure that you keep up to date on the Fresno website, which we will put up in just a moment again, so that you can be informed about when that public comment period is taking place, and you can participate then as well. Does that sound intriguing to anyone here? Love a good public comment period. So fun. All right, let's see. All right. There will still be a lot of, just for everyone's awareness too, because you've participated in this meeting, we do have several others. One request that I would ask of you is that you tell your friends and family, your neighbors, your colleagues, your coworkers about future meetings. There will be another in-person meeting tomorrow evening at Vinland Elementary School from 6 to 8 p.m. There will also be 2 virtual meetings, and all of this is on the website, but just so you know. And then another in-person meeting that is youth-oriented, primarily for high schoolers and older students to participate in. That's going to be on November the 9th. That has a different time frame. That's from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. I will also be facilitating the meeting tomorrow and the one on the 9th. And I think that the City of Fresno is looking into adding an additional, can I talk? Yeah, a third in-person meeting that is date to be determined. But, so we have another one, and that will, oh, it is on the 3rd. Okay, I'm sorry, you said 3rd. It's on November the 3rd, which is next Thursday at Pinedale Community Center. Okay, just learned about this tonight. So we have another opportunity, so if people can't make it to the ones that are currently published, we'll be adding to the list. Tell everyone you know. This process is, I think it was sort of fun. Who doesn't like multicolored sticky notes? It's like looking at starbursts on a piece of paper. And all of the materials, again, will be available in Spanish, Hmong, Punjabi, and English. So making sure that's not a barrier for folks if you want to participate, make sure all your folks know about that. And last but not least, we are going to distribute some comment cards for you to fill out. We'd love to hear your feedback on the process, the experience, anything else that you'd like for us to know. Tony's handing those out now, so stick around for just a couple minutes because that information really does help us. And thank you so much. I'm going to put the website back up. Oh, take some leftovers. I hear they're delicious. That way you don't have to make dinner. And thank you so much. We really appreciate all of your input. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so Sure. So the question is, where is the information on the youth meetings? If you visit this website on the very bottom, fresno.gov/cultural arts plan, you will see the date for the youth meeting. Again, it's November 9th, but there is information on there about those meetings and the location. So question about the age range for the youth, high school and above, high school and college? So she says that they're working with the Youth Leadership Institute locally to get the word out to all of the high school students, but we're not capping the age limit at high school students. So high school, community college, you know, Fresno State, Fresno Pacific.
I go to Fresno State, so I can let the Fresno State people know. That's why
Fantastic.
when you said older, it's like, you want
Students, yes, but yeah, but just as an emphasis, because we know that there is a social barrier for young people to feel comfortable to voice their opinions. We want them to feel open and safe to share what is meaningful to them, because what youth needs is often different than some of the other population.